New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Good evening, and welcome to the Miracle of Prosperity. I'm your host, Reverend Jim Webb. I'm the author of a number of books on prosperity, the flagship being The Soul of Prosperity, which is available on Amazon.com. It's a 228-page guide for you that helps you to map out your own personal roadmap to prosperity by identifying the blockages to prosperity unique to you, and by then developing a plan and implementing a plan to overcome those blockages and to allow the prosperity that God wills for you. The Soul of Prosperity has a number of other books under it. These are ancillary ebooks, including Prosperity from A to Z, 30 P's to Prosperity, Create Your Self-Manifesting Vision Board, and Forgive Your Way to Prosperity. So with that body of knowledge and expertise, we do a show each Sunday here called The Miracle of Prosperity, where we look at all different angles of prosperity. We look at prosperity not just as money and stuff, but we look at prosperity as spiritual prosperity, where we have a sense of oneness with a higher power. And that oneness with a higher power causes us to feel loved, loving, lovable, and causes us to allow loving circumstances in our lives. We look at professional prosperity, where in the words of Florence Scovel Shinn, we have a wonderful job with wonderful pay, where we provide a wonderful service in a wonderful way. We look at family prosperity, where we have a sense of peace, safety, and comfort within our family units, or we create family units that offer us that. We also look at relationship prosperity, where our relationships are outer reflections of the inner peace and harmony that we find with ourselves. So our relationships are as uplifting and supportive as we are willing to be uplifting and supportive of ourselves through our own personal self-development and self-acceptance. So we look at all of these and more. And we look also at factors that can either enhance or block our prosperity. These I call the X factors of prosperity. And tonight, we're going to look at one of the X factors of prosperity, and that is boundaries. And you may ask, what do boundaries have to do with prosperity? Because that's a question I asked at one point. And then a wonderful spiritual guide and teacher named Reverend Poleskey did this sermon that rings in my ears 20 years later. The sermon was called Setting Boundaries. So I asked him to be our guest tonight, and he graciously agreed. But the universe didn't, because due to some technical challenges, he is unable to be with us. So we're going to discuss boundaries tonight, and my special guest is our producer, Reverend Michael. Hello, Reverend Michael.
Well, hello there, Reverend Jim. It's a surprise to find out 20 minutes before airtime that I was your special guest. And I understand about technical issues.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we are no stranger to technical issues.
Oh no. But no,
Yes,
I think this is a great subject to talk about, especially with holidays coming up about boundaries. So
yes,
no,
exactly.
it's a so
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful topic. And I never saw it this way until Reverend Poleskey did that sermon. And one of the things that popped into my head around boundaries is that we think of boundaries as fences that keep people out. Boundaries have gotten a negative rap. But it started occurring to me when he did that sermon. Boundaries are not fences to keep people out. They're not walls. They are guideposts. And it also occurred to me that boundaries are basically sacred agreements,
yes,
mostly with ourselves.
right. Yeah, so the tendency with people who are on a spiritual bent, or for those of us who have grown up in the Christian tradition, is that the whole idea of martyrdom is that
Yes.
we are to give and give and give and give and give. Now, and I've noticed this also with some of my ministerial colleagues and also those who are involved in spiritual work. We are really, really good givers. The
Hmm.
challenge is that when do you recharge your batteries? And I remember talking to a Christian counselor one time,
Hmm.
and she told me, pastoral counselor, and she told me, she says, when she sees pastors in her office, one of the first things to go in their lives is a time of devotion each and every day where they read their Bible and pray. And the reason being is because they're constantly giving. So if you're constantly going out and give, 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 the battery runs dry. So
Hmm.
what boundaries give us is an opportunity not only to recharge the batteries, but also to be available to ourselves first so that we have something to give other people. So that's kind of my, and there's some other things to share on that too. But I think that having, um, having time for me,
Hmm.
having time that not scrolling on the phone. I mean, you can do that, but having time where I spend time with me, recharging me,
Hmm.
and that if you have a situation, for example, like at home, I'm
Hmm.
thinking about some of the moms out there where you are constantly giving, 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 giving. And then what happens is then you start setting some boundaries. What happens is it's, or if you are involved in dysfunctional relationships,
Hmm.
that when you start setting boundaries, you are going to notice that the S word is going to come up, and the word is selfish. You're
Yes.
being selfish. Okay. So when I'm working with clients, and especially the number one
The
client
first client is yourself.
myself, is to understand that I have to take care of me first.
Hmm.
And if it's really going to disturb my peace of mind for me to give to anyone else, then I need to take care of me. So boundaries give me an opportunity to say, okay, I want to help here. I want to serve here, but I have to, I just can't give myself totally and completely away to you. That's not going to work here. So,
Yes, I understand. And you said something very interesting, and that is that we have believed that our value comes from giving, giving, giving. And A Course in Miracles, since this show is about linking prosperity to A Course in Miracles, A Course in Miracles, lesson 108, says that giving and receiving are one.
mhm.
And that was a pivotal lesson for me. So I'm hoping it'll be a useful lesson for our viewers as well, because it helped me to bring into balance those things. Because as you said so brilliantly, we tend to get those things very much out of balance due to that martyr syndrome.
Yes, and it also the whole idea of saying a holy yes and a holy no.
Tell us
So
more about that. What's a
okay, yeah,
holy
so
yes?
the and I'll also link it to thinking then in a moment then too.
Mhm,
So the holy yes is saying what I'm going to do is I'm going to live a God-centered, spirit-centered life. I'm going to put that first in my life.
mhm,
All right. So I'm not going to live use, and this was explained to me by an addiction counselor. The tendency is, especially for people new in recovery in 12-step programs, they go
mhm,
ahead and they put themselves in the middle, and then they put everything else around, including the recovery. And what
mhm,
the addiction counselor told me was, it doesn't work that way. When you
mhm,
live a God-centered life, and again, that spirit is your primary relationship, that
mhm.
all the other things will take care of themselves. Now, again, that's why I encourage my clients and talk to them about, do you have time every day that you carve out for yourself to be quiet and still? Do
Yes.
you have time each and every day that you are um, praying, either by yourself, or that's another gift that you could give yourself, is to find a prayer partner.
Mhm.
Find someone who does nothing but pray with you, not give advice, not try to fix you, because you're perfect, whole, and complete. So what you're doing is you're finding someone that you can have a sacred connection with. So that can be a gift to yourself, as finding a prayer partner to be able to do that. So,
Yes.
uh, am I setting time aside for reading? Am I setting time aside for sacred service that feeds my soul? And again, that could be completely different than what you're doing uh, on your job. Let's say, and I'm thinking of people who are in the helping professions like nurses and doctors and such. So, am I doing something that really just feeds me? Um, and am I taking care of myself? That's another boundary. Is
Mhm.
am I getting enough sleep? Am I eating properly? Am I setting aside time for exercise? Am I really taking care of myself first?
Yes.
So now, so it gets to the point, and I see the whole idea of, okay, well, what if you are like a busy mom, or that you've been involved in a relationship that again is dysfunctional, where
Mhm.
that you are the giver all the time, and you start saying, well, I need to set boundaries. Understand that people are not going to necessarily be happy with you.
Yes. And I
So
love what you said before about the S word coming up, because it will be the first and last thing you hear once you start setting a boundary. And one of the things that has helped me with that is to understand that boundaries are not selfish. They are selfless.
yes,
Because when you build a boundary, you allow yourself to serve others better, because you allow yourself to serve yourself better. You alluded to this before. You alluded to the fact that when you're on an airplane and the oxygen masks come down,
um,
you have to give oxygen to yourself first, before you can give oxygen to anyone else. Otherwise, you're no good to anybody if you are passed out because you haven't gotten oxygen. And so that analogy has helped me to understand that, it's not selfish to set a boundary. It is actually one of the most selfless things you can do, because you can then serve yourself, which in turn enables you to serve others better as well. And one of the things you said that was so brilliant that I want to emphasize with our guests is taking time for yourself to pray, to meditate, to replenish spiritually. No matter what you do in life, that is at the center. There was a scripture: seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else shall be added unto you. And never have truer words been spoken than that. That is the guiding energy that will enhance your life and enable others to enhance their lives as well. What do you think, Reverend Michael?
Yes, and you're using again from the New Testament, from the example of our brother Jesus, the whole idea of, if we take a look at his life in the scriptures, he took time to rest. He
Yes.
took time to pray. He took
Yes.
time to get away from the crowds. I mean, and he was extremely popular back then. And one of the historical reasons was because that he was a really good exorcist. And that
Yes.
exorcists at that time
Mm-hmm.
charged big money
Mm-hmm.
for them to drive the demons out. Well, he didn't charge.
Mm-hmm.
He accepted, donations, but he didn't. Again, he just went ahead and he had let the healing power flow through him. So again, the whole idea of, again, of taking time to be able to do that. And sometimes again, and this is about what would be a good indicator that I don't have good boundaries. Well, I think that if you're feeling depleted all the time, if
Mm-hmm.
you feel like you give, and nobody gives back to you,
Mm-hmm.
okay, maybe that you need to get maybe a minister, a practitioner, a therapist, is to help you set some boundaries in, because if you're not used to setting them,
Mm-hmm.
you don't. First of all, you probably don't know how to,
Right.
and that if so, and you probably don't know what areas that you need to start setting some boundaries to be able to do that. One thing that's going through my mind is during uh, during ministerial training in Centers for Spiritual Living, one of the things that was emphasized to us was self-care.
Yes.
And this is really emphasized, you have to take care of yourself first before
Yes.
you take care of anyone else. Is that you have to be with you, spend some time with you, take your days off, darn it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's with when you're in ministry, sometimes that you don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Take your days off, take your vacation time,
Mm-hmm.
take your time that you're given to go on a retreat. There's a reason why that's in your contract.
Absolutely. And for our viewers, every one of you is a minister in some way. So it's not just pulpit ministers or those in the specific
Right.
helping professions, because no matter what your occupation is, your job is that you are a light worker. And no
Yes,
matter what you're doing, you're giving off light. And so you
absolutely.
must receive in order to continue to be a full and growing channel of that light.
Well, we have a comment this evening from the fine
Mm,
therapist and
yes.
host of our show next. Um, from Catherine Dukas. She says, "Good evening to you both. Receiving is a form of giving, I believe, because it allows the giver to feel a sense of completion. By
Yes.
accepting love like compliments, help, the recipient honors the the giver's generosity. It becomes a circulation of beautiful reciprocity, such a valuable conversation. And she also says, if no self-care, then the opening for depletion and resentment set in that does no one
No one
any
any
favors
favors.
at all.
Absolutely.
And so,
Always give from a cup of overflow.
right,
When your cup is depleted, you've nothing left to give, and you're of no use to anyone. And that's why your brilliant idea of a thriving personal spiritual practice is important. Because when you continually uh, connect with that infinite source of infinite light that is an infinite supply, you are in overflow. And go ahead, you were going to say something.
right. And so, and again, some of this comes from working with from individuals in 12-step programs. One of the things that we had that came up with working with especially mothers in recovery was, well, my kids are constantly they're constantly after me. They're constantly wanting attention. And
Mhm,
so what we would do is we would suggest to them to have some mommy time by going in the bathroom and
mhm,
locking the door
mhm.
and doing some type of prayer or meditation in the bathroom.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have to do that, or to go into the
Absolutely.
bedroom and to spend
Mhm.
some time with that. Some of the other suggestions was that again, either get up 15 or 30 minutes in the morning earlier. I know for
Mhm.
some people that's going to be a real chore, but to do
Mhm.
that again, to take care of you, so that again, that if you keep giving, and you feel really depleted, or another thing to look out for is if you don't think people are appreciating you,
Yep.
then maybe it's time to start setting some boundaries and start, saying, okay, what do I need to do here? And
And
especially,
there's another thing that comes up as well. Another thing that comes up is not just self-care in terms of bubble baths, but self-care in terms of, and you alluded to it before when you said, what feeds my soul? But what also brings you joy? What also brings you satisfaction and fulfillment outside of the helping profession that you're involved with? In other words, do you have hobbies? Do you have friends who are not in the business that takes most of your time? Do you
yes,
have other pursuits that give you a broader perspective on life and are also sources of joy and expression? Because another thing that is endemic to people in the helping professions is that people in the helping professions, even light workers, birds of a feather tend to flock together, right?
right.
And before you know it, it's like, I need to be with a real world friend and go eat some flaming sushi and see a movie or something like that. And and that is very important as well. And so I want to dig down into this a little bit more, because what we are talking about is the symptoms that necessitate setting boundaries. But beneath that is a consciousness that we all need to explore and perhaps heal, that is beneath setting boundaries. So I want to go into that a little bit more when we come back here on the New Thought Media Network.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity, Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center, Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
What if the person you think you are is just a fraction of who you truly are? What if years of conditioning and surviving in a challenging world have left you clinging to strategies and beliefs that mask your truest nature? I'm Catherine Duca, psychotherapist and self-esteem coach, and you're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? A show that looks beneath our psychological masks and uncovers our profoundly messy, beautiful, brilliant, tender-hearted essence. Join me as we go in search of the hidden power of our true selves. I'm so glad you're here.
And we're back here on the New Thought Media Network on the Miracle of Prosperity. And we've got Reverend Michael here today with us discussing boundaries. And what we've established thus far, for those of you who may be just joining us, is that boundaries build the balance that is necessary for prosperity. And sometimes it's good to think about that as a mantra. Boundaries build the balance that is necessary for prosperity. For if you are in imbalance, it is impossible for you to allow the divine flow that balance implies and that balance allows. And one of the things that I thought we'd drill down on is what stands between us and allowing ourselves to build that balance. I wonder if one of those things is guilt, the feeling of not enoughness and needing to compensate by
Right.
over-serving. What do you think, Reverend Michael?
Yes, I think that's just the tip of the iceberg, is that it's our BS or our belief systems. If we grew up in a household that, or that we grew up in certain environments that tell us that we are to constantly give, especially women, you are supposed to constantly give and give and give and give and give to your family. Then again, what happens? Then the wife or the woman becomes resentful. Also, hidden beliefs of, I'm not enough. I'm not worth it. I'm not worth taking the time for. They're just name. Do you know how you find out about these beliefs? It's stop doing the behavior. Stop taking care of other people. And then what happens is that as you start putting a loving halt to some of it, what happens is that when you feel that you have to, ask yourself, well, where is that coming from? And that is good food to take to your therapist or to your counselor, is to, again, if you're having a challenge,
Hmm.
figuring that out and then change that belief.
Hmm.
So when we do a boundary, the boundary is it's a sacred no
Hmm.
and a sacred yes to ourselves. It's saying,
Yes.
listen, I'm willing to do this, but I'm not willing to do that because I need to take care of myself or that this does not fulfill me. You said something else too about the whole idea of having other activities.
Hmm.
Am I able to pursue other activities? Am I giving myself time for that?
Hmm.
Again, if I'm giving myself to, again, constantly taking care of the kids, constantly doing that, how about again to start finding ways to carve out time for yourself during the day? That I
Yes.
think that is a really an important thing to do. And again, if you don't know how to do that, then maybe again to call up a counselor or a therapist or to call your minister and to start figuring out some ways of again that you feel again when you are spirit centered, when you feel that within you,
Mhm.
when you feel that light within you, then you have it to give to other people. Okay.
Right.
And and that when you start appreciating who you are, then other people will start appreciating you.
Absolutely. One of the things that I learned from A Course in Miracles around this is, our egos are the parts of us that do not believe that they are enough, because our egos believe that we are a name, rank, and serial number, and we are those limits, and we are all those limits, expectations, and roles that others have placed upon us, and those things crowd out the truth of who we are as the light of God. So I started asking myself, if I were the beloved Son of God, and I actually am, why would I do this to myself? Why would I punish myself this way? Why would I put myself through this challenging situation?
Mhm.
And as I asked questions of myself in that way and continued to develop that aspect of myself, that is the Holy Spirit of God, I couldn't find a reason to put myself through that punishment or to martyr myself in that way. And that role, that elevation into your higher self, well, let me personalize it. That elevation into my higher self helped me. And for those of you on a spiritual path, and all of you are, whether you know it or not, whether you want to be or not, your purpose on a spiritual path is to elevate to that highest self to the degree where you honor yourself, recognize yourself, embrace yourself, know yourself as love and lovable, and therefore love yourself to the degree where you are no longer willing and then no longer able to hurt yourself in martyrdom this way.
We have a really good question from Reverend Jane Batch. She asks,
Mm.
when I say no, I feel guilty. Welcome to the club,
Yeah.
Reverend Jane. How
Yes,
can I release this? I'm going to let you go first, Reverend
absolutely.
Jim Webb.
You release the guilt of no by releasing the concept that you are wrong, not enough, or somehow flawed. Every aspect of you, me, all of us, that denies prosperity is the aspect of us that feels not enough, wrong, or flawed. And that part of us feels guilty. So our task is to continually release our belief that that is who we are, for that is not who we are. And we get to know who we really are, and this is not just a platitude. We get to know who we really are by continually communing with Source. and believing what Source tells us about who we are versus believing what the world has told us. Source tells us we're beautiful. We say, no, but what about what Maggie said to us in third grade? Source tells us we are lovable. No, but what about Joe in fifth grade and what he said about my mother? Source tells us you are powerful, and the world says no, but what about that time you got rejected from that job application?
Right.
And so commune with Source, listen to Source, believe Source, be in Source, allow Source to be in you, be at one with Source. And from this perspective, there is no guilt because there is no separation.
Right.
There can be no separation. There can be no guilt when there is no separation. And this helps you to walk your path. Now, one of the other things that we alluded to, Reverend Michael, and I want to bring this up in this concept too,
Okay.
is we alluded to the fact that, we sometimes feel betwixt and between. But when you serve yourself, you're really serving others. When you're serving the highest purpose for yourself, you're really serving others. Because sometimes it's very easy to enable people's dysfunction out of guilt, right? You keep doing this for them, you keep doing this for them, you keep doing this for them, you keep doing this for them. And all of a sudden, they are disempowered, and so are you. And you are imprisoned in this limited role when your souls both came to grow. What do you think,
Yes.
Reverend Eagle?
Well, yes, everything that you said, and I want to just to say to Jane is that that's one of the nice things about meditation is that, and one of the things I've developed over the years is that in meditation you develop what's called the observer self. That what happens is that it's that still small voice that pulls you back into who you are and says, do you really want to do that? Or I'm feeling guilty, or I'm feeling this feeling. And again, there's kind of you're watching the feeling. You're saying, well, okay, I feel guilty. So your watcher is going, you're feeling guilty. Where do you think that comes from? Or what do you think will happen if you don't do it? And again, I'm not minimizing anything here. I mean, there's just some things that, yes, you have to go take care of. But if you're constant, and again, a good barometer is how you're feeling. If you're constantly feeling drained, if you're constantly feeling worried, if you're constantly feeling upset, and again, what that does when that's the separation that you're feeling. You're not separate from God, but again, that you're vibrating at a point of separation. So to start vibrating at a place of gratitude, a place of love, a place of caring. And how is that done? That is done through prayer and meditation, through spiritual reading, through being with other people. Again, steel sharpens steel, by the whole idea of developing the true self that you are, so that, again, that the addiction, and I've read this in several places, may not be to substances, but it's to feeling bad. That's the addiction.
Yes.
So how do we start feeling good without having all the other stuff? And again, one of the ways to do that, again, is by carving out time for yourself, living a light-filled, spirit-centered life. And again, that then all that other stuff will start putting, if spirit is first, then what will happen is all that other stuff will start taking care of itself. And people will learn. I remember a story one time about this one woman who she wanted to go back to school, and that people came up to her, or her family said, well, who's going to make us dinner? And she and she said, I will have dinner. Dinner will be in the refrigerator. You can go ahead and you can serve it yourself, and I'm going to go to class. Now, one again, that I think that stories like that where we start getting and tapping into what makes us happy,
Hmm.
what really brings us joy, then what happens is then again that um, the S word will become people will start they'll say it in the very beginning, but again if you keep with your boundary, then what will happen is that will go away, or unfortunately sometimes they go away,
Absolutely.
so and so
You brought up something very brilliant, Reverend Michael, about the observer self and how meditation gives us an opportunity to observe more objectively what is going on. Because what that higher self that observes what's happening will see is they will see the erroneous idea at, that is at the center of your guilt and discomfort. The erroneous idea, I'm a bad mother because I'm not fixing my children dinner because I want to go to school for myself, which is actually going to school for them so you can get a degree and make more money so that they can have clothes to wear and food on the table. Um, that idea, when you are in that observer space, you can see that erroneous idea for the error that it is. For that observer space is also synonymous with being in the love space, where
yes,
you see that everything is a cry for love. This is a place where you have felt unlovable because of you felt to be a bad mother. This is an error in thinking. And as A Course in Miracles says, we can allow the truth of God to correct the error in our minds. So
mhm,
that observer can also send in the truth. The truth is, you're a wonderful mother. In the larger scheme of things, this is the best gift that you can give yourself and your family. And that truth can dissolve the error that was in your mind about being a bad mother for not making food. Does that make sense?
absolutely, and that again that some of the and this concept of setting boundaries for some is probably a new concept. And
Yes.
because they don't know how to do that. And that's
Yes.
one of the reasons why, again, we've given some of the symptoms this evening. Again,
Hmm.
feeling drained, feeling not enough. Again, that people don't appreciate you, that you give and give and give and don't receive back. These may be some things again to take to other people and to kind of get another perspective and say, listen, this is how I'm feeling. Um, do you have some perspective on this that will help? And again, that's the reason why, again, going to a good coach, good counselor, good therapist sometimes is a really good thing, especially again, if you're constantly giving and you don't know when to stop,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm. Yeah,
if you read
exactly. Good
if you
point.
read Proverbs 31, okay, a proverb, if you did everything in Proverbs 31, you'd get 2 hours of sleep at night if you're a woman, if that,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So there's some expectations I think that are on individuals, especially on women, that are just unbelievable. And the whole idea again of a family unit, again having a father and a mother, and again the whole idea of shared responsibility that in not only in providing for your kids but also in being a good example of how to live a balanced life and how to
Yes.
and how to take time for yourself. Your kids are always watching you. Do you understand
Mhm.
that? they
Good
they may
point.
not, they're always watching you.
Mhm.
They're watching how you interact with your spouse. They
Mhm.
are looking at you when you are chewing out, somebody at the grocery store.
They're
They're
forming their reality based on the reality that you present. And I didn't know how true that was until I went to graduate school by working full time and people looked at me like I was crazy. They're like, "You're going to graduate school by working full time?" And they thought that was the strangest thing. But I thought that was the most natural thing because that's what I saw my mother do. I saw
Right.
her go undergraduate and graduate school and hold two jobs while I was growing up. So I didn't know that there was another way. And so kids are forming their reality
Right.
based on what they observe. So that's important. Now,
Yeah.
Reverend
Good.
Michael, I want to talk about a couple of other things before we kind of wrap up.
Okay.
I want to talk about baby steps for better boundaries
Okay.
and what some baby steps for better boundaries can be. Because you mentioned a couple times that some of us may be hearing the boundary speech for the first time. So, what are some baby steps we can take?
I would say one of the baby steps is, again, to start carving out some time here. And again, start carving out 10 to 15 minutes in the morning or 10 to 15 minutes midday or in the evening,
Hmm.
that all you do is sit and have some time for you.
Yes.
Ideally, a half an hour a day doing that. Now, for some of you, this is going to be a new concept. So that's why I'm saying the baby step here is 10 to 15 minutes. Now you're saying, well, what should I do during those 10 to 15 minutes? Go to YouTube, get some meditation music. Just put in meditation music, or usually put in alpha or theta meditation music by Neural Beats. Put that in and start listening to that 10 to 20 minutes a day. What that does is that starts getting you in touch with you when you start doing that. And it's free. All you have to do is punch it into YouTube. So that's a baby step. The other baby step that you could do is to find a spiritual book or something that feeds you, and to read something out of it every day. For me, I have reading that I do every day from the Bible. I have reading every day that I do from Ernest Holmes. So to have some things that feed your soul on a daily basis, and again, it can, just get a book. Now, the one thing that, again, in working with clients and myself is, well, I usually fall asleep in the morning when I meditate. Okay, so that's the best time then for your reading, to start with 15 minutes in the morning of some really good stuff reading. What that will do is that will set the tone for your day. And then as you start with those baby steps, what will happen is you go, well, you know what? Maybe I'd like to do this a little longer, or you know what? Maybe I'm going to do this and maybe start exercising, or maybe that I'm going to start taking a look at my diet, and again, from an observer self attitude, and saying, well, maybe, instead of eating all the bad stuff, maybe I could substitute carrots or something, or
Yeah.
fruit or something. So to start taking a look at it again by doing that. The other thing too is that the first time that the first couple of times when you say no to individuals, please do not expect them to be happy, because they probably will not be happy with you. Okay, so just let them have their feelings and say, thank you for sharing that. And I'm going to go ahead and do it. I know it's hard and difficult, especially for some people, again, who have a problem saying no. But once you start doing that, once you start saying, listen, or I need some time for myself, talk to me later about it,
Hmm.
is to go
You
ahead
are
and just put it out.
lovable. You are lovable, loved, loving, and love able just as much when no comes out of your mouth as when yes comes out of your mouth. It hasn't diminished your capacity for love, your ability to love, or your loving essence. So remember that no is just as loving as yes.
Yes.
Now, I want to share with you one of my most recent new boundaries. And this is an
Okay.
important point that we haven't really covered yet.
All
And
right.
that is the most important boundaries are the boundaries on yourself. And these are not fences that hem you into anything, these are guideposts for your own life. For one of the things that boundaries are indicative of, boundaries indicate your sense of deservingness. And deservingness indicates your ability to accept the prosperity that God offers. So building boundaries for yourself says, I am worthy of this vision because this boundary supports this vision for my good.
Yes.
So one of the boundaries, the self-boundaries that I just created in the last month has been a sleep boundary. And it has worked wonders in my life.
Oh, wonderful. Good. Good.
So
And,
what,
and,
go ahead.
and guess what?
What's
We're
that?
coming up to the boundary of time.
Yes. So very good. Excellent. So I want to thank you, Reverend Michael, for pinch hitting for Reverend Poleskey, because this idea of boundaries literally changed my life. We thank you so much for all that you do to make the miracle of prosperity happen. And this is no accident, because this is our opportunity to thank you as we move into Thanksgiving week. So I want all of our viewers to also thank Reverend Michael for producing this show.
Thank you. Thank you. I will accept that. Thank you.
Yes,
I
please
will
do.
rub it in. Rub it in.
Rub it in. Rub it in. And we thank you all. We thank our viewers, and we thank everyone for being with us this evening on the Miracle of Prosperity here on the New Thought Media Network. Good.